Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Tyree from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this is going to be the Combat Series episode number 17. Of course, this episode is going to be coming out on all four of our platforms: our Instagram account, our Facebook account, our YouTube account, and our Apple Podcast account. So let's go ahead and dive into the first segment of the Combat Series. I'll be sharing my fight summary on the fight that took place in the sport of boxing this past weekend between Canelo Alvarez and Jermell Charlo. So we saw on Saturday night in the sport of boxing, Canelo Alvarez fought Jermell Charlo. Canelo Alvarez went on to win that fight comfortably and won that fight by unanimous decision to successfully retain all four of his undisputed titles. He successfully retained the WBO, WBC, IBF, and WBA world titles against Jermell Charlo. And oh my gosh, Saturday night. Now, yes, I'm going to get into how this fight did not live up to the hype. But there's one guy that actually did show up to work and was not worried about a payday, and that was Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez looked really good in that fight against Jermell Charlo. I criticized him on this podcast over his last three performances, and I was starting to contemplate if Canelo Alvarez was on the decline this late into his career, fighting over 63 career fights in his respective boxing career. I started to have my doubts in his last three performances that we saw against Dimitri Bivol. That performance in the trilogy we saw against Triple G. That performance that we saw against John Ryder on Cinco de Mayo weekend. All that went out the window for me because Canelo Alvarez looked great against Jermell Charlo. He looked good defensively, had the head movement going, great defensively. Reminded me of the days that Canelo Alvarez had that great defensive strategy to his playbook, to his repertoire. He looked really good, head movement, dodging Jermell Charlo's shots. He landed a great amount of body shots to Jermell Charlo in that fight on Saturday night. They were sounding like gunshots. When I was watching the fight, you could just hear the whip on that every time he connected to Jermell Charlo's body. Canelo Alvarez was showing his power punches. His power when he connects on strikes has not gone anywhere. And he looked good cutting the ring off. Like I said in the fight prediction, if Canelo Alvarez is going to walk out of the T-Mobile Arena still the undisputed champion in the super middleweight division, he was going to have to use his bread and butter and cut off the ring. And man, did he look like $1 million cutting off that ring and making Jermell Charlo look like an average fighter on Saturday night. I have no complaints about Canelo Alvarez's performance against Jermell Charlo. I scored the fight a complete shutout, all 12 rounds in favor of Canelo Alvarez, and that's really why he went on to win this fight by unanimous decision. I have nothing bad to say about Canelo Alvarez and his performance, but what I have to say about Jermell Charlo is not going to be pretty. This is the reason why this mega fight did not live up to the hype. The other fighter just came for a payday, and that was Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo, yes, I give all the credit in the world to him for stepping up 2 weight classes, daring to be great to fight Canelo Alvarez. But daring to be great wasn't the answer that you gave us on Saturday night in that boxing ring. You were just there to survive. You were just there for a paycheck. You did not care about your legacy. This is a guy, Canelo Alvarez, Jermell Charlo, both twin Charlo brothers. We're calling out Canelo Alvarez for years, waiting for a dream fight, waiting for a big opportunity. The opportunity presented itself, Jermell. You had the chance to pull off a great upset. At least go out there trying. You were out there to survive. You were out there for a paycheck. You were out there just to say that you survived 12 rounds with Canelo Alvarez. Jermell Charlo didn't even try. He got intimidated of Canelo Alvarez's power. That's why he went down in the 7th round after he got that shot to the chin and rocked his world. Jermell Charlo, this was so pitiful for the sport of boxing. He didn't even try. And he really got outboxed all 12 rounds of this fight. And you really had the cojones to call out Terrence Crawford to a fight at the 154-pound division next after you got outboxed for 12 rounds. I ain't buying that. Jermell Charlo, to me, is just in the ring to have a big payday at this particular time in his boxing career. And it's so disappointing because the man is so talented. He's the undisputed champion at the 154-pound division, the super middleweight division, super welterweight division. It's just disappointing that Jermell, it's come to this point for him. And this is what I thought about that performance. I think that one fighter came to fight, and the reason why this big-time fight didn't live up to the hype was because of Jermell Charlo. And that's very disappointing for boxing fans because these big mega fights that we're getting, I get it. In 2023, we are getting the big mega fights. You can't complain about that. However, these big mega fights that we're getting all around the board have actually ended up being one-sided affairs. And at least the other guy that's on the receiving end, the losing side, on a one-sided beatdown, is at least trying. Jermell Charlo did not try at all in that fight, which makes me so sick, so disgusted. Canelo Alvarez was having his way with him so much to the point where he didn't even have to stand up. He didn't even have to sit down on the stool in between rounds. Jermell Charlo. But moving on, what's next for these two respective fighters? What's next for Canelo Alvarez after his big win against Jermell Charlo? I think Canelo Alvarez will take time off from the sport of boxing. I think he'll be back in 2024 on Cinco de Mayo weekend. That is when I'm predicting Canelo Alvarez will be back in the boxing ring. I believe he will be fighting the winner of the David Benavidez and Demetrius Andre, as I get tongue-tied. That fight between those two happening, I do believe that the winner will fight Canelo Alvarez on Cinco de Mayo weekend in the undisputed super middleweight championship fight. That's what I think is next for Canelo Alvarez, since he's still on a deal with the PBC. He still has 2 fights remaining on that PBC contract. So I do believe he's going to fight the winner of that fight next in his boxing career. So moving on to what's next for Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo just suffered his second career loss at the hands of Canelo Alvarez. However, Jermell Charlo right now is a unified champion at the super welterweight division at 154 pounds. Now, the boxing fight that was supposed to sell even more between Canelo Alvarez and Jermell, it pictured, for the first time ever, you had an undisputed champion and an undisputed champion colliding for the first time in a boxing ring for the men's side in the sport of boxing. That was the case, but when Jermell Charlo stepped in that ring to fight Canelo Alvarez on Saturday night, he was officially stripped of his WBO world title. So now he is a unified champion. He now holds the WBC, WBA, and IBF world titles, a unified champion, holding 3 out of the 4 important titles. Meanwhile, that WBO belt is now vacated. And that fight between Tim Tszyu and Brian Mendoza that will be taking place in the next few weeks in the sport of boxing will be for that vacant WBO super welterweight title. So I do believe that Jermell Charlo should have his sights set on fighting the winner between Tim Tszyu and Brian Mendoza, and an opportunity to become a 2-time undisputed champion in the super welterweight division. That's what I think Jermell Charlo should do next. And I don't think he wants any parts of Terrence Bud Crawford. You just got dismantled by Canelo Alvarez, and you were fighting to survive. And after that, you really had the cojones, the nerve to call out Terrence Crawford after that fight, after your F- performance? I don't think so. And I do believe he needs to get back on track. We do actually need to see, I hope Tim Tszyu actually pulls this out, because it's well overdue. We were supposed to see Jermell Charlo and Tim Tszyu fight each other all the way back in January. Unfortunately, Jermell had the hand injury, was sidelined for the most part of 2023. Got back in the boxing ring when the opportunity presented himself when he fought Canelo Alvarez. But I do think that's what Jermell Charlo should do next in his respective boxing career. But that is my fight summary on this weekend's fight between Canelo Alvarez and Jermell Charlo.